There is so much happening in the world of football right now, and even as someone on the inside, it's kind of hard to follow because so many details are emerging so quickly. I've compiled everything. I'm going to try to make this digestible and concise so you know where we're at. Gianni Infantino has proposed creating a new company called FIFA Forward Enterprises, FFE. I say it that way because we now know that the FIFA Council did not know about this proposal until it was released to the public. FFE would hold FIFA's commercial rights. That's broadcast, sponsorship, ticketing, licensing, all things that are revenue generating. FIFA says that FFE is worth 20 billion with a B dollars. Infantino wants to sell up to 21% of that to private investors. That would be $4.2 billion. The lead investor lined up is Thrive. This is a fund run by Josh Kushner. Josh Kushner is the brother of Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner is the husband to Ivanka Trump. Ivanka Trump is obviously the daughter of sitting US President Donald Trump. So that would be Donald Trump's son-in-law's brother's fund. Now we head to the timeline, right? On July 27th, the Times of London breaks this story. On July 28th, FIFA confirms it publicly. Infantino writes to all 211 member associations setting out the terms. Now, this is the offer that he gave them. Back his plan and your funding will go up to $40 million. Say no and you get around $10 million. That's 4 times the money for a yes. Now, there are many details and specifics as to how that money comes in, when it comes in, what is given up front, what is given later. But we're not going to get into those details right now as I'm just trying to tell you what's happening. The deadline to respond to this is the 19th of September. That is 51 days from today. One of the biggest things about all of this is that nobody was told. So FIFA's partners, vice presidents, its own confederations, all of them are saying that they learned about this via the press. So I could name the position and what they've said. It doesn't matter. What matters is what they have said. I was not informed in advance, not consulted by FIFA at any level prior to the public announcement, was only made aware of this matter through media reports. We were completely unaware. We learned about this very significant project through a press release. Now, that's normally not how this process works. If you're new to football, there are certain processes, decorum, shall we say, that has not been followed here. The biggest story today is UEFA's stance. And if you don't know what UEFA is one of these 6 confederations where these 211 votes are split. These confederations are split by continent and major regions. UEFA represents Europe. They have the most votes with 55. Now, UEFA's statement today is the most powerful because they're the only ones that have gone so far as to say that they are boycotting. Okay? Quote, no UEFA national teams will participate in any FIFA competitions for so long as these proposals remain alive. I highly encourage you to read the full statement. I have pulled pieces out. It is both irresponsible and indefensible that a proposal of such significance for football was conceived in secret and brought to the brink of approval without any meaningful consultation with those entrusted with stewarding the game. National associations around the world are now presented with an ultimatum. Accept the irreversible capture of football's greatest competition or bear the consequences. This is not a democratic decision, but governance by intimidation, an act of coercion unworthy of an institution entrusted with the stewardship of the global game. Now, some of the other confederations and the federations have also objected, but they are objecting to the process, to not being told about this. UEFA has gone further than that. Quote again, but our opposition goes far beyond process. The moment external investors acquire ownership interests in FIFA competitions, football changes forever. Europe's position is clear. We will never lend this model our legitimacy. A boycott is declared. Some things are simply too important to sell. The FIFA World Cup belongs to football. It always will. And so long as Europe has a voice, it will never be for sale. Again, I encourage you to read it in full. As I started filming this, a little thing came up that says that CONCACAF has met and released a statement. Now, CONCACAF represents North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Quote, the discussion reinforced the need for greater transparency and proper governance. For these reasons, CONCACAF and its 41 member associations have rejected the proposal. We can go into so many further details. This is layered. This is just me trying to be concise. I want to hear your takes on this so far. Where's your head at? Everyone who loves the game, who loves football, enjoys it, appreciates it, whatever it may be, should care about what's happening right now. So Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino has confirmed that his plan to privatize the World Cup has been scrapped. The New York Post was the first to report the collapse of the proposal. Infantino says that the division caused by the plan is the reason for the collapse. The deal, which aimed to raise more than $4 billion US, sparked outrage across the soccer world. All members of UEFA, Europe's soccer governing body, voted to boycott all FIFA competitions, stating the World Cup is, quote, not for sale. CONCACAF and the Asian Football Confederation also rejected the proposal. This private investment plan collapsing, how significant is this?
I mean, this is massive. I do think it's the hype, that FIFA were trying to capitalize on, and is why Gianni Infantino was so influenced by the powers that be in the United States, who have been using soccer and using FIFA over the last 18 months, or leading up to the World Cup, to really have a seat in the room, and in this case, try and kind of control the room, by the room itself, not necessarily by soccer, but far too close to comfort for UEFA and for CONCACAF. And so I'm not surprised, to be honest, to see the deal fall through the way that it did. And nor am I surprised at the timing in which Gianni Infantino thought, got to strike while the iron is hot. And, this was a tournament projected to have pulled in 11 billion. And a few years ago when they'd said that seemed outlandish. It seemed unrealistic. And then it looks like they walked away with 14 to 15 billion dollars. So I could see why Gianni Infantino was influenced, that perhaps they'd left money on the table and then there was more out there. But the timing of this just was very poor, and he hadn't read the room, and he certainly has now, because without UEFA, there would have been no party, certainly.
How does the president of FIFA continue or be replaced, or what's the process here?
It's a bit of a hybrid of being NHL commissioner like Gary Bettman, while also being elected like the Prime Minister of Canada, which makes FIFA very, very interesting. And FIFA does have, in its operations, in its hierarchy, in its organization, a very royal family type of feel, with some of the chaos that we've seen associated with, let's say, the Trump administration. So I do think that in this navigating world where you've kind of blended the two together, we found ourselves in this situation where Gianni Infantino is playing both elected president and steward of the game. And he has to have the backing and the votes of 211 member nations, of which UEFA has by far the strongest weight. And without UEFA voting and backing him to keep his seat, and without UEFA wanting to participate and the European nations wanting to participate in the World Cup, you wouldn't have that at all. So as hard as a line as that was, the next World Cup in 2030 is going to be co-hosted by Spain and Portugal and Morocco. It'd be very difficult to go forward with any of those plans if you didn't have UEFA involved. So that is why this fell short, and this deal collapsed in the fashion that it did.
FIFA's proposed plan to sell private stakes in upcoming World Cup tournaments that sparked backlash from fans and soccer associations around the world has been scrapped, FIFA President Gianni Infantino said in a statement Friday. Having listened carefully to all the views, it has become clear that the project has created divisions of a nature that, regardless of the level of support, are no longer in the interest of the objective set out in the first place, Infantino said. Our purpose has always been and will always be to unite and improve. As a result, this proposal will not proceed.
FIFA's plan to sell part of its business just created an all-out revolt after Gianni Infantino pushed a proposed plan that would open part of FIFA's commercial operations to private investors. UEFA is now fighting back in a very dramatic way. UEFA and all 55 of its national associations unanimously voted to boycott FIFA competition while the proposal remains active. And the message is really clear. European teams will not return until FIFA abandons the plan and provides binding guarantees that its competitions will never be open for private investment. And UEFA's not alone. CONCACAF and its 41 nations also formally rejected the proposal, criticizing the rushed process and the lack of transparency. This has now become much bigger than a business disagreement. If UEFA and North America hold their ground, FIFA could lose participation from nearly 100 associations. Infantino wanted to commercialize part of the World Cup. Instead, he may have triggered the biggest power struggle that international soccer has seen in years.
Welcome back to the Freedom Room, where we explore the biggest stories shaping our world today through facts, analysis, and meaningful discussions. Today, we are diving into one of the most controversial debates in international football, FIFA's growing commercial ambitions and the claims that the organization is moving towards a model that gives private investors greater influence over the FIFA World Cup. For millions of fans, the World Cup is more than just a tournament. It is a global celebration that unites nations, cultures, and generations. But as football generates record-breaking revenue and attracts powerful investors, many are asking whether the game's most prestigious competition is becoming more of a business than a sport. Is football entering a new era where commercial interests overweigh tradition, or are these changes necessary to secure the future of the world's biggest sporting event? Stay with us until the end, because after the clips we'll watch, we'll break down the facts, we'll examine the arguments from every side, and explain what this development could mean for fans. We'll explain what the development could mean for players and the future of the beautiful game. Stay tuned to the Freedom Room and watch to the end.
I think FIFA have gone too far, and I think it'll backfire.
I've got to be careful here because honestly, I feel quite strongly about this, I have to admit. So rather than wading myself, I'm going to read out the statement from Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham has said, "Football does not belong to investors, it belongs to the people who fill the stands and who stand on the touchline week in, week out, rain or shine. The World Cup is not a product, it is the greatest competition in world sport, and it was never anyone's to sell. Dress the deal up however you like. Once you've sold a piece of it, you've sold out."
I have one glimmer of hope in all of this, which is I think they've pushed it too far. I thought the Balogun thing in the World Cup was a turning point. I think this is pushing it over the line. I cannot see it in the same way as when they tried to launch this European Super League and it backfired. I think this is a turning point. I just cannot see the European football nations standing for this any further. And I think Infantino will regret pushing things as far as this. Who gets to come out as the saint in this? And we joke about Sepp Blatter becoming the latest person to tweet and criticize again. But it's, UEFA somehow emerged as this knight in shining armor from the failed European Super League project, while, by the way, they've kind of created their own. And their statement saying, this crosses a line in football's governing institutions, UEFA takes it extremely seriously. It's like, the sad thing is that UEFA has to be our saviour, but I think FIFA have gone too far, and I think it'll backfire.
Corrupt FIFA strikes again. FIFA President Gianni Infantino is under fire after reports that FIFA considered selling a stake in the World Cup's commercial rights to private investors, including a firm reportedly linked to Joshua Kushner. The proposal has sparked backlash, with CONCACAF rejecting the plan and reports of opposition from UEFA. Critics are raising concerns about transparency and governance, while some US lawmakers are calling for greater scrutiny of FIFA's business practices. Stay tuned as this controversy unfolds.
Allowing the US to host the World Cup was the worst mistake that FIFA ever made. Because despite UEFA and CONCACAF boycotting FIFA's proposal to sell the World Cup, FIFA still has enough nations to approve the democratization of football. And it will probably go through because the nations would triple their FIFA money overnight. And it doesn't matter that this is the exact model that ruined US men's soccer, as long as it makes billionaires more money. And of course it's not so subtly financially backed by Donald Trump's son-in-law's brother's company. And even though the European and American nations are boycotting it, they only make up 96 of the 211 members in FIFA, so there is still 110 nations who could approve this proposal, and Infantino needs 106 of them to get it done, and unfortunately, he probably will, because he's only selling 20% of FIFA's revenue source. He's supposedly giving private equity none of the power, and the World Cup nations would go from getting $8 million a year to $20 to $30 million per nation, which unfortunately for most nations is too sweet of a deal to pass up. So it really doesn't matter how UEFA and CONCACAF feel about it, because the deal is probably going to go through, and therefore the soccer world will completely regret ever letting the US host a World Cup, because it will now ruin soccer for the rest of the world for the rest of time.
Football, FIFA, and a huge row. Who would have guessed that? Goes to the heart of who owns football. Now, FIFA, of course, no stranger to scandal. The President Gianni Infantino has gone in with the, pardon the pun, I mean, the equivalent of a real hard two-footed lunge here, and annoyed huge numbers of football fans by planning to hive off a company with, guess who, potentially himself as the boss and in charge. Who has he been consulting?
Guess who?
Guess who? His best mate, a certain lifelong, well-known football fan, or at least contacts of a certain Donald J. Trump. Now, FIFA is technically a non-profit, but under this plan, it would create this for-profit subsidiary that would take on private investment to run the biggest prizes in football's kind of global property manifesto, if you like to say. That's a World Cup and the Club World Cup. And the chief investors, we are led to believe, Joshua Kushner, who is, of course, brother of Jared Kushner, who Lindsay has just been talking about. Now, FIFA say this isn't a done deal yet, and each of the 211 national associations, so that's the FA here, would take a stake. But the issue really is who would be in control of this new commercial entity.
And quickly, how's it all going down?
Well, it hasn't been agreed by the FIFA Council yet. UEFA are furious, and I'll quote you. They say this crosses a line that football's governing institutions should never cross. None of us are the owners of football. It is not FIFA's to sell. And of course, this comes on the back of, as you said, a massively successful World Cup in the USA. That itself had scandal, the ad breaks disguised as water breaks, and of course, Trump intervening to get FIFA to suspend the red card for their star striker.
FIFA is a governing body that is domiciled in Switzerland and has tax-exempt status because it is a non-profit organization. And the purpose of the organization is to organize football tournaments around the world. And the money that it collects, it sends back to each of the constituent federations so that they can use those funds to develop the sport in their countries. It's a very simple and beautiful role and perfectly benevolent function. The moment that you privatize it, it becomes a for-profit company. You start to develop massive conflicts of interest, because once you do that, then the goal becomes exclusively about making more and more money, because investors expect a return on their investment. And you know what that means? More tournaments, lengthier tournaments with more teams, more matches, more advertising breaks, even doing a World Cup every 2 years, which would be a horrendous idea, hosting the tournaments only in rich countries because you're going to make more revenue in those countries. It means forever higher ticket prices. It also means that the owners, the investors who feel like part owners, because they will be part owners, they will have an influence on what happens. They will have an influence because they're going to want viewership to be high, so they're going to want the final to be the big names. And this is clearly going to penalize smaller football countries that don't have the big brand names. So all of this is, the conflicts of interest that this would develop are all so incredibly negative for the sport and the spirit of the sport. We already saw this with the last two World Cups and this agenda to get Argentina to win, and it destroyed the last two World Cups. Look, and I have nothing against, civilized capitalism. I've worked in finance my entire life and kind of still do. And there is nothing wrong with incentive structures that unleash creativity and create wealth. I'm all in favor for that. But there are some things that are for the public good and should remain for the public good. Okay, this is why you don't privatize the fire department, okay? Because they would go around setting fires so they could make more money, okay? And this is why you don't privatize the police department, okay? Because then they would only protect the people that paid them the most. Like, these are obvious things. This is why every nation in the world provides healthcare to their population, well, with one notable exception, because healthcare is a public good. I mean, it's like privatizing air. I mean, like, you can't, some things belong to everyone, okay? And I think that football falls into this category. Football is a treasure, but it's a treasure that belongs to all of us, to every citizen of every country in the world, and it's something that has been beautiful and uniting for decades. And it's a global event that has just such positive connotations. Historically, it's just the most remarkable sporting event in the world. Everybody has a right to this, okay?
Football fans, we might have just watched the last ever World Cup. Yes, you heard that right. Because if you don't know, yesterday the FIFA President Gianni Infantino has announced that he is planning to sell stakes in the World Cup to private investors. And today he has also announced that he has offered all the members association a 40 million incentive to back his FIFA Forward enterprise proposal before 19th September. UEFA will hold an emergency meeting on Thursday to discuss the situation. Now, UEFA are coming out saying no European teams will be at the World Cup if this happens. If FIFA sell their shares, sell their stakes to investors, there will be no European teams in the World Cup. The World Cup will be boycotted by UEFA. And we're talking about nations like France, Spain, England, Belgium, Portugal, and the list goes on. And this is why we all love UEFA. UEFA are going to try their best to make sure FIFA Infantino do not sell stakes to private investors. And I don't know why FIFA and Infantino are even thinking about this. This president needs to be replaced. He's literally ruining the beautiful game of football. Why change things if nothing is broken? And I hope and pray this wasn't the last World Cup we've watched. Because if this actually happens, I promise you now, we will be seeing nations back out of the whole tournament. And there will be a lot of conflict and disagreements, and the World Cup will never be the same again. Our beautiful sport is being taken away from the fans because of money from the higher up.
The FIFA World Cup has evolved into one of the most valuable sporting events on planet Earth, attracting billions of viewers and generating billions of dollars through broadcasting rights, sponsorship, licensing, hospitality, and ticket sales. In recent years, FIFA has expanded the men's tournament from 32 to 48 teams beginning in 2026. Launch an expanded Club World Cup, and explore new commercial opportunities to increase revenue and global reach. These moves have sparked intense debate across the football world. Some reports have suggested that private investment firms are increasingly interested in football competitions and media rights, leading critics to worry that commercial interests could gain greater influence over how major tournaments are organized and marketed. UEFA, several domestic leagues, and some football executives have also expressed concerns about increasing crowded international calendars, arguing that the expansion of FIFA's competitions could place greater physical demand on players while reducing the importance of existing domestic and continental tournaments. Supporters of FIFA's approach argue that expanding competition creates more opportunities for emerging football nations, increasing financial support for members associations, and help spread the game's economic benefits beyond traditional football competitions. Critics, however, fear that if financial returns become the primary objectives, fans could face higher risks, higher ticket prices, more expensive broadcasting packages, and scheduling decisions driven more by commercial value than sporting integrity. At the heart of the debate is a broader question facing modern sports. How can football continue to grow financially without losing the traditions and competitive spirit that made the competition or made the World Cup the most celebrated tournament in the history of entertainment or in the history of the world? Stay tuned to the Freedom Room because we'll come back with more commentary. Let's watch some more clips.
Big news right now, FIFA's president Gianni Infantino is in major trouble. He may have flown a little too close to the sun with this privatization of the World Cup plan to sell parts of it to the Kushner family. CONCACAF has now come out rejecting Infantino's proposal. This comes after UEFA came out and said, we're going to boycott the World Cup. According to The Atlantic, a vast majority of members of CONCACAF are losing confidence in Infantino right now, and members of Congress are calling for an investigation of FIFA now. Democrats say if they take over in November, they will launch widespread investigations into Gianni Infantino, into FIFA, and the pay-to-play schemes we've been seeing. Right now, Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, is in major trouble. He looks like he flew a little close to the sun, And, well, we'll see what happens next. Spread the word. Follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about.
FIFA now are looking to sell a part of the World Cup to private investment, for which they're actually starting an enterprise called, I think it's FIFA Forward Enterprise or something like that, FFE, which essentially is to try and offset some of the value of the game into private equity or private ownership, so that then they can influence like how the game is operating, how it's commercialized, how it looks. And it's like, I guess it's taking away from the football fan, which is causing massive chaos around the world.
I didn't even realize FIFA's a non-for-profit. I think at the moment the discussion is like people are worried about what this could mean, right? For someone that's not a business person, what do you think is the actual worry here?
So the worry is
potential corruption going forward, or like...
Yeah, you're having non-football people controlling the football game. So it could be dictated around ticket prices. It could be dictated around competitions, the accessibility of the game.
Because once it's about money and shareholders and all that kind of stuff, you owe it to turn a profit for those people.
Isn't that what happens in England? English Premier League, that's why they earn such good wages, is because it's privately owned?
This is where the contention kind of comes in, because it's going to be kind of the sport going to a private investment feels like it's got a more political kind of focus and chain towards it. European nations are already colluding to speak about, like, we'll boycott future World Cups, we'll boycott future tournaments. So it's like already caused a great deal of friction that would suggest that it's probably not like the Premier League operation.
FIFA's plan to sell part of its business just created an all-out revolt after Gianni Infantino pushed a proposed plan that would open part of FIFA's commercial operations to private investors. UEFA is now fighting back in a very dramatic way. UEFA and all 55 of its national associations unanimously voted to boycott FIFA competition while the proposal remains active. And the message is really clear. European teams will not return until FIFA abandons the plan and provides binding guarantees that its competitions will never be open for private investment. And UEFA's not alone. CONCACAF and its 41 nations also formally rejected the proposal, criticizing the rushed process and the lack of transparency. This has now become much bigger than a business disagreement. If UEFA and North America hold their ground, FIFA could lose participation from nearly 100 associations. Infantino wanted to commercialize part of the World Cup. Instead, he may have triggered the biggest power struggle that international soccer has seen in years.
We've just had the biggest World Cup in history, and now FIFA wants to sell off a piece of it. FIFA, the non-profit global governing body for soccer, has announced a proposal for a new entity called FIFA Forward Enterprise. It would bundle together everything that makes FIFA money. That's broadcast rights, sponsorships, ticketing, and licensing. FIFA said that it will create this $20 billion company and offer private investors the chance to buy up to 20% of it. The goal is to raise around $4.2 billion, cash that FIFA says will fund soccer globally. Now, notably, FIFA has confirmed that this private investment will be spearheaded by a firm run by Joshua Kushner. That's the brother of President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to lead the deal through his investment firm, Thrive Capital. FIFA President Gianni Infantino already has a close relationship with President Trump. He spent more FaceTime with Trump than most world leaders have this year. That's fueling concerns that this deal blurs the lines between sport and politics. Top House Judiciary Democrat Jamie Raskin has said this week that he's investigating Infantino's relationship with Trump, claiming his committee has evidence of a possible quid pro quo between the two men. Now, a source close to Josh Kushner's investment firm has told me that it's wrong to assume that Trump had any role in this deal. They said that Josh Kushner has no political ties to the administration, hasn't donated to them, and shouldn't be judged by his brother Jared's connections. UEFA, European soccer's governing body, has been hugely critical. They've said of this deal in a statement that, quote, "The soul and governance of football are not assets to trade, especially with zero transparency as to who gains financially." Now, this plan still needs approval from FIFA's 211 member associations. That vote's set to happen in September. We've asked the White House for comment on this proposal and not heard back.
Whether FIFA is truly moving towards a more privatized model remains a matter of debate, but there is little doubt that football is becoming increasingly commercialized. As investors, broadcasters, sponsors, clubs, leagues, and governing bodies compete for influence, the decisions made over the next few years could shape the future of the World Cup for generations. Will increased investment strengthen the global game by improving infrastructure, expanding opportunities, and making football more accessible around the world? Or will it gradually transform the tournament into a product designed primarily to maximize profit? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the future of football will depend on striking the right balance between financial growth and preserving the values that inspire billions of supporters for nearly a century. We would love to hear your opinions. Should FIFA continue expanding its commercial partnership, or should it protect the World Cup from greater private influence? Share your thoughts in the comment section.